Hello there my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars video. Did you miss me? I missed you. It is I coming at you once again, your favourite galactic hostess, Star Wars Meg. And today, we're going to be talking about something which I suppose is a bit of a heavy subject. So before we get into any of that, just as an appetizer, let's look at something much more light-hearted. There is a new photo of George Lucas and his wife, and George is holding a Labubu.
Oh, it's so cute!
Did anyone have the maker of Star Wars holding a Labubu on their 2025 bingo card? I certainly didn't. This has been making the rounds and is pretty hilarious, especially with no context. Let's leave it at that. So getting into today's news. As a Star Wars content creator who's been making videos basically every day for the last 5 years, there are certain topics that come up time and again, and one of those is the question of what is Star Wars canon. Not just the concept of canonicity itself, but how Lucasfilm has regularly contradicted their own continuity since 2012. In comics, in novels, in the animated shows, there have been numerous instances of self-contradiction. Well now my friends, in the big year of 2025, Lucasfilm has given something of a response. They haven't directly addressed some of the major complaints, but they have given an official statement. It is in the context of Star Wars Visions, so do keep that in mind. I know a few of you have been asking me about this, I have seen your comments, and my response is pretty simple. The new volume is stronger than Season 2. My personal favourites are The Song of Four Wings, then the sequel to The Ninth Jedi, and the final episode, Black, which was super trippy. But like I said, the show is not canon. Nonetheless, it's not as black and white as we thought, because the creators of the show were given parameters. They were told what they could do and what they couldn't do. It wasn't just a matter of remixing anything Star Wars they wanted. They weren't given the freedom to just do whatever with it. They were given certain rules. For one, they couldn't use any main characters from the movies, no Skywalkers or anything like that, and the other rule is that they couldn't use real-life creatures. No real-life animals, they had to make them alien. And aside from that, it turns out Lucasfilm isn't as reluctant as we thought to make some of these shorts canon. In 2026, The Ninth Jedi is getting a full series, and producer James Woe says some of those stories could fit into actual canon. And Visions isn't the first time in Star Wars history that this question has come up. The idea that if a story doesn't contradict any established lore or canon, there's no reason it can't fit into the canonical timeline. And with The Ninth Jedi, it takes place far in the future, it reinforces the mythic cycle that defines Star Wars, and it expands the universe while preserving the saga's heart. And then he implies that canon is very restrictive, and why escaping it is such a major boon. He says unlike the movies and the saga, getting to do something away from Star Wars canon is liberating. And so from this interview you do get the impression that, just like so many other producers and creatives at Lucasfilm, they almost see the canon label as a bit of a hindrance, having to always fit things into a story so that nothing is contradicted, so continuity stays intact. But there is room for both. There should be a consistent through line of canon content, but there should also be room for experimentation. And I'll be honest with you, Visions is a good start, but it's pretty niche. Star Wars needs more creative and mainstream ways of telling stories that don't always count. Something like a what if show. Or my suggestion, they should do more with the expanded universe. Instead of giving a fresh new cover to those same books every few years, why not make your own stories with those beloved characters? Whether it's the Ancient Sith, or Luke's Academy, the Solo Twins, surely there's a middle ground to be creative and free in the Star Wars universe. Why not go far into the future or far into the past and be free to create in those eras where you're not as constricted by the lore? Just my suggestion, Visions is neither canon nor legends. It doesn't belong to either continuity, but their statement does provide Star Wars fans a bit of insight. Official canon continuity refers to stories, characters, and events that are recognized as part of the main Star Wars universe, separate to Star Wars Legends, the expanded universe. And according to the company back in 2018, canonicity is a matter taken very seriously by the studio, and is overseen by the Lucasfilm Story Group. This move was meant to simplify the Star Wars timeline and give new filmmakers and writers more creative freedom. This was especially the case in regards to The Force Awakens, Star Wars Rebels, Rogue One, and subsequent films and shows. Under this structure, aside from the on-screen content which always took precedence, only the new novels, comics, and games were considered official Star Wars canon. So Lucasfilm says, aside from the movies, Aside from the Clone Wars, everything pre-2014 no longer counts. So you might be thinking, well, surely within this perimeter, at least Lucasfilm can remain consistent. Surely all of the new stories are cohesive. Not true, my friends. It turns out Lucasfilm is happy to retcon anything they want. In their own continuity, great examples are the Ahsoka novel, the Kanan comics, the Battle of Jakku comics, the Aftermath trilogy. There is a lot that is inconsistent. And so far we've had two responses, one from Dave Filoni and one from Pablo Hidalgo. To put it simply, my friends, Dave Filoni says, every story in the Star Wars universe is a retelling from a different point of view. So depending on the storyteller and the context, the story can change based on poor recollection of events. So in Filoni's world, canon is a bit like jazz, but you're talking about the Star Wars fandom. We are a passionate group, and this might vary from fan to fan, but there are a great deal of us who like consistency and canon accuracy. And the second response came from Pablo Hidalgo. After the K2SO comic was retconned for Andor Season 2, which to be fair, I think was a good decision. It would have been nice if they found a way to work around the comic, because now K2SO has two very different introductions. They could have said something like, K2's introduction in the comic is the Rebellion's cover story to avoid mentioning the Gorman massacre. It might be Cassian's way of explaining how he met K2 without bringing up suspicion, and in that way, both events are canon. One of them is a lie, and the other is the true version of events. They could have done something like that. But Pablo Hidalgo says, unfortunately these things do happen, and in the case of the K2SO comic, it came out during a time where they had no idea Andor was ever going to be a thing. It was before Disney+, before Kathleen Kennedy was pitched this show, and Pablo says, had anyone known there would be an Andor TV show at the time, that comic would never have happened. It was just a way for them to make more time material. So he's putting up his hands and saying, look, unfortunately we can't reconcile the continuity, it's a case-by-case basis with the story group, but in this instance, they had to look at Tony Gilroy and allow him to tell the story the way he wanted. And at the end of the day, how many people read that comic versus saw the show? I know that's not the point. I know if we're trying to be very consistent across the board, you could argue it doesn't matter how many eyeballs a project gets. If they've established something as canon, and it's in novels, comics, visual guides, you name it, they have to stay consistent. But there you go. Sometimes it's a matter of pragmatism. But what do you guys think? Share your thoughts in the comments down below. Did you enjoy Star Wars Visions? Should Lucasfilm be more free? Should they create their own expanded universe? Maybe a Star Wars What If show? Let me know down below. And if you enjoyed this video, guys, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you next time. May the Force be with you, always.